But obviously with things like palpitations, you need to go to your doctor first and have everything checked out. The doctor may then say, no, it's just perimenopause, so there's not much we want to do about it. We don't think there's a serious underlying issue. In which case there are things that we can do with herbs and with food, but that's one of the obvious things that you would really want to get checked out with your doctor first. With all the other issues, I'm going to talk about some of them in a little bit more detail, the ones that people most often see and have the most issues with. So things like hot flushes and night sweats. I'll be talking about vaginal issues with the menopause, mood swings, and weight gain.
Rachel?
Yeah.
Somebody said they can't see the slideshow. Is everybody else seeing the slideshow? Is it just one person? Everybody's yes? Anybody else no? Just let me know in the chat. Okay. So,
is everyone else seeing it?
Yeah, well, nobody else has typed no. So I think yes, everybody else is seeing it. I'm not sure. Let me message her privately on so go ahead. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I message her privately on the phone.
So talking about the treatment options, obviously the first one, and a lot of people, most people know about, is hormone replacement therapy or estrogen replacement therapy. And the type you get will depend on whether you've stopped your periods or not. So sometimes you might have just estrogen, sometimes you will have estrogen with progesterone, sometimes you will take the progesterone just at certain times, not the whole way through, sometimes you will take it the whole way through. Now, obviously, there's a big scare thing about hormone replacement therapy. So you get a lot of people saying, I can't take that, I'm going to get cancer. And that's a result of something called the Women's Health Initiative, which was a survey which was stopped. Well, it's a study on the effect of hormone replacement therapy, which was stopped early because they said it caused cancer. And a lot of people then completely freaked out and just stopped taking hormone replacement therapy overnight. What I would say is, I mean, obviously it's not something I particularly, I particularly advocate, but if you need it, then you should really look at this, because for some people, this can be an absolute lifesaver. So the hormones they use now, they're used in a different way and in different amounts than they were used in the Women's Health Initiative study. And also the conclusions that are now being drawn from the type of people that were using and when they were using the herbs, the hormones are slightly different. And new hormones are being produced all the time by pharmaceutical companies. What I would say, like I say, it can be absolutely life-saving for women who have horrific symptoms. There's no doubt it can be really effective. If you are worried about it, there's a really good book called Estrogen Matters by a guy called Avram Blooming, who is an oncologist, specializes in breast cancer, and he uses it for his patients. It's really well written, it's really easy to read, it's written for normal people, so it's really understandable. So if you think that you might need it, or you want to use it because you're a scientific type of person but you're worried, then I would strongly recommend reading that book. Actually, I should probably deal with the last bullet point on this first, which is what's right for you, what are your symptoms, and what is your current lifestyle. So as I said, some people, their symptoms are really mild, and often they can be dealt with by increasing exercise, doing yoga and things like that. And some people find their hot flushes just go away immediately. Other people have horrific hot flushes. They go bright red, they sweat profusely, they have them every hour, they go on and on. They're professional women, they're going to meetings on a regular basis, they find it awful to deal with. So, you know, what is your lifestyle and what are your views on the different options? Are you someone who says, I want scientific proof? Or are you someone who's going to say, if I can, I'd like to go natural? You know, you need to do what's right for you. It's not what other people are telling you to do. It's what is right for you at this moment in your life, what's going on for you. Now, the other thing that people talk a lot about, bioidentical hormones, and these are ones that are basically the same as the ones produced by your body. So they're not synthetic hormones. And they're produced, you generally, what happens is you generally have regular testings of where your hormones are, and then a pharmacist will make you up a specific mix just for you. So the medics will say that's not covered in the US by the FDA, and in the UK I think by the MHRA, because they're personal prescriptions that are mixed up specifically for you. But people say that they can be very effective. So it's not something I use when we use herbs. We're not trying to say we want to keep you where you were. So we want to keep you having periods. We want to keep you at an estrogen level you should have been in your 30s. As herbalists, we want to support you in the transition of your life, moving on in your life to the next stage of your life. So I don't use them at all, but there is a lot of information out there if you're still not keen on synthetic hormones, but you think that hormone replacement therapy is the way to go for you. But there are lots of other things that you can do. So there are a lot that we can do with herbs, but to be honest with you, the first route to go, in my view, is nutrition and exercise. You can do a lot with nutrition, you can do a lot with exercise, and a lot with just changing your lifestyle. And if you can sort yourself out by changing your lifestyle and changing what you eat, then that's the way to go. If you then need support on top of that, then yes, look at other stuff like acupuncture, massage, aromatherapy massage, herbs, counselling if it's necessary, if you're having a really hard time going through the menopause, particularly if you're really, really depressed. Some people can get really depressed in menopause, and it is all down to the hormones, but please don't suffer with that. It's really important that you get the help that you need if you're feeling really depressed. So looking at the bigger picture, and this is building a bit on what I talked about last week, I'm going to go back to the bowel. As I said last week, all naturopaths and herbalists are always really interested in your poo, always, whatever is going on with you. So the bowel, the reason why the bowel is so important is that during menopause, you're going to be producing a lot more hormones. So your body is going to need, one, the nutrients to produce those. And by the way, that's cholesterol, big time. All your sex hormones are made with cholesterol. So you might find that your cholesterol level goes up a bit, but that's because your body needs it. You might find that you get slight swelling in the hands and feet and you put on a bit of weight. That's because your body also needs water and nutrients to make all the hormones that it's making. But once hormones have done their job, they have to leave the body. We can't have all these hormones just going round and round and round. They do their job, they get removed. And the way they get removed is they get broken down in the liver and then they go out through the intestines. So if you have dysbiosis, if your microbiome is not good, what can happen, or if you're constipated, what can happen is that the estrogen, instead of being escorted off the premises, so to speak, is going to start recirculating around your body again and again and again. So you'll have too much estrogen, and that's not a good thing. So looking after the gut, so having, fermented foods and the right fiber and lots of fruit and vegetables, that type of thing is really key when you're going through menopause. So it's a great time to clean up your diet if you haven't done that already. Like I say, liver detoxification, the reason I mentioned the liver is, as I said, it breaks down your estrogens. So if your liver is not working very well or is overworked, then that's not going to help you go through menopause, which is why sometimes they say cut down on the alcohol. And that is a good thing because we don't want to overburden the liver. Stress, again, is really, really important. That has an impact on our hormones. As I said, the adrenals are going to take over the production of the sex hormones. So if they're totally conked out, producing lots of cortisol because you're so stressed all the time, then they're going to be worn out and it's going to be hard for them to produce the other hormones that you need, the estrogen and the progesterone, to basically build stuff up, because estrogen is needed for building all the proteins that we need in our bodies. And diet, key. So even though you're going to be possibly putting on a bit of weight temporarily while you go through menopause, because your body needs that, it needs the cholesterol, it needs the nutrients, it needs the water to do what it's got to do. Not an excuse to sit back and eat lots of cake and go, yay, I don't need to worry about it. The decline in estrogen can have an effect on the hormone that basically says to your body, I'm full now. So you can find that you seem to think that you want more food. So we can use food so perhaps eating more, concentrating on good proteins and low glycemic carbohydrates and lots of vegetables is going to help you get through the menopause. Lifestyle is a really good time to introduce exercise if you're not doing that already, both cardiovascular exercise and weight training exercise. The weight training obviously will help with things like osteoporosis, cardiovascular. As we age, and certainly after menopause, we're more prone to cardiovascular disease. What I would say though is once you've gone through menopause, don't go mad with this. So menopause is not the time to think, yay, I'm going to start training for triathlons or I'm going to sign up for Tough Mudder. Because over-exercising can actually reduce, it can produce an enzyme which reduces your level of estrogens. And after menopause, that's not necessarily what we want to do. So moderation in everything is my view, in what you eat and what you drink and how you exercise. But exercise is a really good thing to get into the habit of. Smoking, we all know that's not good for us, but if you haven't given it up already, now is a really good time to give it up, because studies show that people who smoke can suffer from worse symptoms going through menopause than those that don't. And just as an aside comment, nicotine will make its way to the cells in the vaginal epithelium. So yay, that's not really a very nice thought. And going into menopause, that changes and you can get more infections. So smoking, if you're prone to those type of infections, smoking is only going to exacerbate them. The other thing that sometimes people need to look at, depending on how bad your symptoms are, and also, I guess, where you are with all the organic and leading a more healthy life, but some household products like the cleaning products you use, the things you put in your hair, the things that you put on your face, some of them have what we call xenoestrogens in them, and those are not good for your body. They can take the place of the proper estrogens. They're not doing the same job. They can confuse your body into producing more estrogens. And also they've got to be removed by the liver. So your liver has to work a lot harder. So sometimes it's worth looking into organic sanitary products and organic body products and cleaning products as well. So looking at some of the particular issues we see, like I see, weight gain is one of the things that a lot of people complain of around about menopause. And I'm really sorry, but I can't say, here's this magic herb that's going to take you back to your 20-year-old svelte self, because there isn't one. And it is a lot harder, but there are things that you can do. And what happens is that we tend to lose muscle mass and we do increase in fat, particularly around the middle. As I mentioned earlier, some weight gain may be a sign that your body is adapting and is not going to last, so don't freak out about that too much. The other thing that you can look at, the point at the end here is that diet and exercise are key, and they are. Those are going to be the best way for you to control your weight, to start eating a healthy diet now or as soon as possible, and to start getting into an exercise routine. But sleep is also really key, because one of the issues, another issue that people complain of in menopause, is they have problems sleeping. And if you're not sleeping properly, then that can impact on the hormones involved in basically telling you that you're hungry and that you're full. So what happens if you're sleeping really badly is that you basically have more of the hormones that say, I'm really hungry, and less of the hormones that say, I'm full now, stop eating. So that is obviously going to have an effect on your weight. And also some people, because we have the mood changes, some people can start feeling really depressed, and that obviously affects motivation, and you don't want to go out and exercise because you're too depressed and you're putting on weight and you don't care because what's the point, and nothing can happen. So then it's important to perhaps try and have a buddy that you can motivate you to we should all try and support ourselves going into menopause, remind ourselves that this is just menopause, motivate each other. One of the other things that happens in menopause is that we can lose our confidence. I remember one of my friends, complaining about one of her friends, saying, oh, she keeps coming to me and asking me to check everything she's doing and it's driving me nuts. But it could be that she's doing that because she's got a loss of confidence because she's using menopause. So let's support our female friends when that happens and saying, you've got this, don't worry, you're just as good as this as you always were. You might just have a little bit of less estrogen and testosterone, which is affecting your confidence levels, but you're still great at this. So don't worry, you don't need to check everything. So supporting each other, I think, is really, really key. Hot flushes and night sweats, these are a big deal, and people obviously can have a real problem with these, and it can be really uncomfortable. I've done a lot of reading on hot flushes, and what I can tell you is they still really don't know what's causing them or how they work. A lot of people say, oh, it's estrogen, but it's not necessarily lack of estrogen, because some people have hot flushes in the perimenopause when estrogen levels can be really high. So sometimes they say it's fluctuating estrogen levels. Other theories say it's noradrenaline, or in American that would be norepinephrine, sorry, however you pronounce it, is the same thing. It's just in England we call it a different name. There's a theory that it's to do with opiate receptors. There's also a theory to do with T4, that's the thyroid hormone. Because menopause is a stress. When you're stressed, your thyroid releasing hormone kicks in, which will stimulate your thyroid stimulating hormone, which will in effect result in more T4, which will cause hot flushes. Now, hot flushes can last 3 to 10 years. The average time is 4 minutes, but it can vary greatly. And just to emphasize again, not everyone gets them. So don't think, when's my hot flush going to arrive? You might not have them. Not everyone has them. And some people just have 1 or 2, and then that's it. Some people just have a few in the night and are not too bothered about them. Some people have to get up in the night and change the sheets. It's that bad. And we can do stuff about it if it's that bad. But they can also occur if you're really stressed and overworked and sleep deprived. And in those cases, the approach would be slightly different. So you'd want to reduce stress levels, and using things that actually reduce stress and looking at what it is that's stressing you out and what your workload is and how you can remanage it can actually really help. And you might find that and even just taking up something like yoga or doing a nice Pilates class with Carla can just sort that out. So it depends how bad it is. The other thing is that things tend to trigger hot flushes. So if you are getting them, then try and identify the triggers so that you can avoid them. The really common ones are coffee and alcohol. So if you're a busy professional woman and you're just about to go into a meeting, you may want to avoid drinking coffee at the meeting, so you don't have hot flush in the middle of it, if that's going to bother you, having a hot flush in the middle of it. There are things that you can do. So phytoestrogens can help with hot flushes. So linseed or flaxseed is a great one. And that's a great form of food to eat, to be honest, going into menopause. It does lots of things. The Latin name basically means really useful herb, and it is a really useful herb because it does lots of stuff. It helps regulate cholesterol, can help with hot flushes, can help with cardiovascular issues. It's a good thing to have. But what I would say about linseeds and flax seeds, if you're getting them already crushed, is that they do go rancid really quickly. So it's best to get the whole linseeds and whisk them up in a NutriBullet or something just before you use them, and use them fresh. But using a tablespoon a day is a really good thing to introduce going into menopause. There are some studies to indicate that vitamin E may help with hot flushes. There's others that indicate it doesn't make any difference. I suspect, again, that depends on what's going on with you personally in your body. There are a lot of female multivitamins that support menopause, and some women take those very successfully and find that they help them tremendously and actually sort out all their problems. The good thing about those is that they're going to be looking at the daily allowance limits of vitamins and minerals that you should have, and providing all the ones that you need. What I would recommend, if you're taking lots of different supplements, is that you do look at what all those supplements contain, so that you're not taking massive amounts of one particular supplement that you shouldn't, because too much is not necessarily a good thing. As I said, relaxation is going to help, and it doesn't matter what form that relaxation can take. It doesn't have to be meditation. If you're the type of person that just goes, I can't empty my mind, I can't empty my mind, and it totally freaks you out trying to meditate, then don't do it. Find something that relaxes you, walking the dog, running, reading a book, playing with your kids, whatever it is. Just find something, have some me time every day, even if it's only 10 minutes. And there is quite a lot that we can do with herbs as well. And I'll talk about herbs later. Heavy bleeding is another thing that women see. And obviously that's really annoying. One, because it's just so inconvenient, isn't it? It's just, you know, not wanting to wear black trousers or a black skirt all the time because you don't know what's going to happen, or you know, it's just debilitating. And it also affects the microbiome in your vagina, which is not a good thing either. But the thing I would say about heavy bleeding is obviously it can be life-threatening. Hemorrhaging is life-threatening, so work with your doctor on this one. Consider the cause. If it's fibroids, again, work with your doctor. Sometimes they say, well, those you need a hysterectomy or something, and maybe you do, depending on how heavy your bleeding is. Just be guided by your doctor on that. But maybe they're not so bad, and you can try other routes if that's what you want to do. It could just be because the tone of your uterus is not quite as good as it was, and there are things that we can do to increase that. It could be something like endometriosis. So there's lots of different causes. There are uterine tonics you can use, like raspberry leaf, and there's also herbs that can help reduce bleeding. There's also foods that actually can help reduce bleeding. Yarrow and shepherd's purse, those are the common names, the ones that we use. We don't just, there's other herbs that help as well. So ladies' mantle can help, and Vitex can be helpful for some women. But like I say, it really depends on what is going on with you. But like I say, please be careful with heavy bleeding. Changing moods and anxiety, obviously this is a key thing. And some people just get slightly depressed and they can cope with it. And they can just think it's just, you know, I know I'm coming up to my period. If you're tracking your periods, then actually you can see and work out what's going on, thinking, oh, I'm just about to have a period, or I'm at this day, and often get depressed, and I know it'll only last a day, and so that's fine. Other people can literally just burst into tears and be really upset and be unbelievably depressed. And in those circumstances, you may need more help. You know, you may need counselling, or you may need other things. Actually, with changing moods and anxiety, other things that you can use apart from herbs, flower essences can be really great and really helpful. But like I say, it depends on the level of your anxiety and the level of your depression. As I mentioned previously, smokers can sometimes find to be more depressed than non-smokers, so that's something you might want to think about giving up if you smoke. Some people think that depression is related to changes in estrogen rather than the reduced amount. So herbs, sometimes if you're perimenopausal, that start balancing the cycle, like Vitex, may actually be helpful, although that's not a specific herb. Just for depression and anxiety, some of these herbs can help. And they've also carried out studies to show that your attitude to menopause may affect the experience of symptoms. So some people say, I'm dreading the menopause. It means that my useful life has ended, my children are leaving, whatever it is. But other people, like I met one woman, and she said to me, I absolutely love the menopause. I wake up every day knowing how I'm going to feel. I'm not waking up thinking, oh no, what's my mood going to be like today? Am I going to be really upset? I'm going to be really depressed. I'm going to be really cross. I don't know. So menopause is a transition into the next phase of our life. And in some societies, women, for example, can't become healers until they've been through menopause, because it's only then that you come into your true knowledge and your wisdom which is why you have the wise, yay, which is why you have the wise old women. So they have found that focusing on the positives of menopause can actually be really beneficial. And I know for some people that can be trite, and if they're really depressed, that can be really difficult. But depending on where you are and how you are, just writing down the things, thinking about, well, what's good about this phase of my life? What doors are opening for me as opposed to what doors are closing, can be a really beneficial thing for you to do. So I'm going to talk about the menopausal vagina. I know it's not something that we all usually discuss. We don't meet up with our friends and talk about our vagina. But awful things can happen to some women. And there's a lot that we can do about it, okay? So know that there are things that you can do. What happens is that with declining estrogens, the tissues of the vulva and the urethra actually change, and we don't have as much lubrication as we had. And the pH in our vagina can change, the microbiome in our vagina can change, which can mean that we can get more urinary tract infections, we can get more vaginal infections, so like bacterial vaginosis. But there are things that we can do about. There are things that you can do about this. There are creams and gels. What I would say though is please don't just put anything in your vagina. So don't just go on Amazon and pick a lube and just use it, because the osmolarity, which is basically the dilution of the cream or whatever it is that you're using, is really important. In fact, it's so important that there's World Health guidelines on it. And if you get it wrong, then you can really damage the cells lining your vagina. So please don't just use anything or choose anything. Now, there is a really great website. There's a company in Minneapolis called Smitten Kitten, and they've got a really brilliant guide on lubes, and they explain why it's so important that your pH is so important. The pH of our vagina changes. It should be 3.6 to 4.5, but as we age, it gets a bit higher. So if you use something that stings and burns, you've probably got the pH wrong and you need a different one. So Smitten Kitten does a brilliant guide. Don't just Google, well, if you just Google Smitten Kitten, you obviously get lots of cute little kitten pictures, which is not really very helpful or what you're looking for, even though they're cute and distracting. So it's smittenkittenonline.com. And like I say, they have really great guides, and they can tell you which ones are good to use and which ones that are not good to use. And some people get incontinence and don't just think, oh, I've seen adverts for incontinence pants, and don't just think, oh my God, that's what I've got to do. I mean, obviously the incontinence stuff is great, but there's exercises you can do, and there's also female physiotherapy you can have that can really help with these things. And again, there's herbs that you can use. The other thing that can happen is loss of or increase in libido. Funnily enough, don't get many complaints if there's an increase in libido, but people do get worried and upset if there's a complete loss of libido. And again, there are things that we can do about that. But just as a reminder, perimenopause is not a form of contraception. You can still get pregnant, which is fine if you want to get pregnant, but not fine if your children are grown and left the nest and you just don't want to start again. So just bear that in mind. So I'm going to talk about some herbs to support menopause. I'm not sure if everyone on this talk was on my last talk, so just a few, just really quickly, just to remind everyone. Herbs are, they're great, and they can do wonderful things for female hormonal health. But there are safety issues involved. So if you're taking medication, then you need to check with your doctor and your herbalist, so both know, so you don't have any that work against the medicine that you might be taking. If you're pregnant or allergic, then obviously you need to be careful with the herbs that you're taking. And also, natural doesn't mean you can take as much as you like. So it's the same as you would use over-the-counter medicines. Use them responsibly. is this working for why I'm taking it, or are the symptoms still there? And if the symptoms are still there, then obviously you want to go and see your doctor. So just use herbs responsibly, or use them with someone who knows what they're doing with them. But we can use them to tone up tissues. So if you're getting prolapsed uterus and things like that, then herbs can be used for that. They can be used to reduce excessive bleeding. They can be used to provide nutrients and encourage hormones to work better, to help with stress, to support iron levels and bone health. And phytoestrogens, that's things like flax seeds, which I mentioned, and soya. They preferentially bind to estrogen receptor sites, but they have a weaker action than natural estrogens. So if you haven't got enough estrogen, then phytoestrogens are a really good source of actually getting your estrogens. Basically, I'm going to talk about some herbs now that I've seen in health food shops. So things that people might see or might have heard of or might talk about, and how we use them. As herbalists, we don't just use one herb, and it's not just this herb for that. So if you went to a herbalist and said, I've got hot flushes, they wouldn't just go, oh, here, have this herb. They'd take they'd sit for you with over an hour, finding out what's going on with you, and they give you a mix of herbs to help. So, but like I say, I'm just going to talk about herbs that you may have heard of that may be useful. So, black cohosh. Now, that is effective and traditional. Its traditional uses, again, when a lot of herbs, there is a lot of scientific evidence out there. There's a lot of studies now, but what there's not a lot of is double-blind placebo-controlled trials, which is what all drugs have to go through before they can be used. Okay, so herbs don't have that in general. They have there's a lot of studies finding out what their various components are, and we can work out what they might do. But what we do have are thousands of years of knowledge of herbalists using them, saying this is what I've used from, this is what it does, this is what they can use for. Now, actually, black cohosh used a lot in the States back in the day for snake bite. But it was known as a woman's herb, and it can be effective for some people with hot flashes and night sweats. It's also effective for some people for depression. But for this one, it would be, I would think about it if somebody said, well, I'm getting hot flashes, I'm feeling depressed, and it feels like there's just a deep, dark cloud hanging over me. I'm starting to get achy joints. I'll be thinking, oh, black cohosh might be a good herb for you. It can strengthen uterine and bladder muscles, so it can be good for vaginal atrophy. It's also quite helpful sometimes for tinnitus, and it can help with fat metabolism as well. Chaste Tree is another one that a lot of people talk about and a lot of people use. It's been used medicinally for over 2,500 years. It's got a very, very long history of use. It's known as monk's pepper because it can have an effect on libido. What I would say about Chaste Tree is it's quite a tricky herb to use because it has opposite effects depending on how much you use. So it can either increase prolactin levels or decrease prolactin levels depending on how much you use. And some people put amounts on that to say this amount will increase and this amount will decrease, but personally I don't trust that because we're all different and people metabolize herbs and drugs in completely different ways. Some people really quickly, some people really slowly. So I don't think there's ever going to be a specific amount that you could say that's going to have this specific amount. So I think it's a very complicated, tricky herb. It can be very effective for some people, and it's used for quite a lot of reproductive issues, including regulating the cycle. So if you're in perimenopause and you're getting acne, for example, and hot flushes, then sometimes it can be quite helpful in effect regulating your cycle a bit more and relieving some of the symptoms that you're seeing. If you've actually gone into menopause, it might not be such a good herb to use. There are some trials indicating that it may help increase melatonin secretions. These aren't trials that have been carried out on humans. These are just trials that have been carried out on cells. So, and if that's the case, it may actually help with insomnia that some people suffer going into perimenopause. So it can be a useful herb, but like I say, I'm actually quite careful in the way that I use Chaste Tree, simply because it can have such different effects for different people. Sage is a great herb. You can grow it in your garden. You can use it in your cooking. So this is actually quite a good one for the treatment for reducing night sweats and using hot flushes. Sage tea is also a great one if you've got really dry skin. In actual fact, it's quite good for lots of constitutions. I would say that the tea, probably if you're having a hot flush, the last thing you want to do is drink a cup of hot sage tea. If you can have cold sage tea, then that might be something to try. Try having it with lemon. Mixing it with lemon juice can sometimes make that more palatable, and that can also help as well. Sage is what we call a nootropic, so traditionally has been used for mental clarity and helping cognitive performance. So again, if you find that you're going into menopause and you're having a bit of brain fog and you're finding you're forgetting stuff, then sage can be a good one. Sage tea is also great to use for sore throats. Just make a tea and gargle with it, and using it, either as a herb or actually in cooking. It helps improve digestion and absorptions of fats and oils. Red clover, this is a phytoestrogen, so it can help with estrogen levels. Traditionally, actually, it was used as a blood mover and a blood cleanser. And actually, in America, I think it's one of their primary herbs that they use with cancer. But I would say, just as there is no herb that you would say this herb cures cancer. And herbalists support people with cancer rather than treating cancer. But in any event, it was a blood mover and a blood cleanser. So if you had lots of toxins in your system, it was used to help clean the system. But as a phytoestrogen, and some of the research that's carried out has indicated that it may actually help improve postmenopause bone density. There are mixed results in trials showing whether it helps with hot flushes. I think really for some women it will help with hot flushes, and for some women it won't. It depends on where your hot flushes are coming from and what's going on with you. And again, it's a nutritive tonic, so that may help with dry skin as well. In fact, lack of estrogen is going to have an effect on your skin and your hair and your nails. So the phytoestrogenic effect is probably going to help with that. Now, adaptogens are herbs that help with the stress response. And a lot of people have heard of adaptogens, so things like the ginsengs, there's Panax ginseng, there's American ginseng, there's Siberian ginseng, astragalus, there's Schizandra, Shatavari. You may have heard of any of these. Now, as I said, they support your stress response. So going into menopause, they can be helpful. If you Google these, and you will probably find a list of wonderful things that they do, and when you read it you'll think, wow, that's brilliant, why don't I take these all the time forever? It's so fantastic, they do so much stuff. Don't do that. Treat them like a credit card. So they're there to help you get a specific thing, to help you get over a specific event, to support you, to then get your body back to normal. They're not there to support an unrealistic lifestyle that is just not sustainable. So they can be really great to take and really helpful, taking you through menopause, but please don't use them to say, I'm going to burn the candles at both ends and I'm carrying on having this completely unsustainable lifestyle that'll keep me going, because there will be payback if you use it like that. And plus it can, basically you can end up with your adrenals more exhausted than they were to begin with. So think about them, but don't take things forever, because that's not what they're intended to be used for. Now, Siberian ginseng is a great one, good adrenal support. There's evidence that it may help improve bone modelling, and it also may help with glucose and fat metabolism. Astragalus, again, that's a good one for general adrenal support. It's cardiotonic, so good for the heart. Hypotensive, again, that's good for the heart, so helps reduce blood pressure. May help with uterine bleeding. This is perhaps one that I would think if somebody said, I'm getting excessive sweating. So astragalus and schizandra, I might think, if somebody was saying that they were having excessive sweats, those might be ones that might be helpful. Damiana, so moving on now to libido, really. Traditionally, that was used to reduce anxiety, but it can have aphrodisiac effects as well, so it can be helpful if you're suffering anxiety or if you're suffering from lower libido. It can also help to regulate menstruation a bit if you're perimenopausal, typically with long cycles and progesterone deficiency. So progesterone is what kicks in the second half of your cycle after you've ovulated. It's there to help you maintain a pregnancy. It can sometimes help with PMS, urinary incontinence and depression. But there's lots of other things that can help with those as well. So again, look at your overall symptom picture. The last herb that I'm going to talk about is Passionflower. And again, not really specifically to help with passion, unless you're having performance anxiety for some reason. It's actually a nervine, and there's lots of studies to show that it helps reduce anxiety. And this is one that can sometimes actually help with insomnia. It can help relieve pain caused by tension and spasms, but there are indications that it has progesterone-like activity. So progesterone falls off in perimenopause, and which is why you can sometimes have irregular periods, and you can have spotting, can start getting really heavy periods. So if you're not sleeping and have anxiety and your progesterone levels are falling, then Passiflora might be something that's good. So those are the only herbs I'm going to talk about. But just to go back to what I said at the beginning, my view is if you can do stuff with lifestyle and diet, those are the absolute first places to start. So the type of foods that are going to help balance your hormones are things like legumes, so your beans, your chickpeas, your lentils, those sort of things. Those are good for balancing hormones. Flax seeds, really great for balancing hormones. Nuts and seeds. Green vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, so those would be things like broccoli, sprouts, kale. Those are all really supportive of your liver. So as I said, the liver is really key for helping support you through menopause. So lots of green vegetables. Beets are also really good for the liver. So lots of green vegetables, lots of vegetables generally. Eating a rainbow diet is a really good thing to do. Having low GI carbs instead of things like, white bread and, white pasta or white rice. Try having wild rice, quinoa, try a few different things, amaranth. Now's a time to perhaps try and get creative with the other grains. But like I say, if you start changing your diet like that, then you will find that menopause, or you should find that menopause will be easier. The other thing that I would say about having a more vegetarian diet is that it's better if you're prone to osteoporosis. It's because you'll have a more alkaline diet. A diet that's heavy in meat and sugars is quite acidic, which means that you're probably going to leach calcium from your bones to offset the acidity. So having a good diet and exercising are what I recommend first of all, and then start looking at these other things. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Okay.
So Carla, have we got any questions.
Yes, thank you so much. You want to stop sharing so we can see your face? Great stuff. All right, great stuff. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you. I made
Sorry, I've gone on too long. It's 7 o'clock.
It's okay. I know I was sending you a couple of messages there because some people are on house lunch break, you know. But listen, to be honest with you, Rachel, I will be very quick with the questions. We just have a couple. Okay. But just a comment first when you were gasping. Someone who was at your first talk said, "Hi, Carla, this is great!" Exclamation. So much relevant information. Rachel is a gold mine. Just to let you know, I must leave at 1:50 for a coaching sessions with a client. So she was just saying, you know, that as you said last time, and as we knew that, and that's why we asked you to come back on and speak about this. But I was going to recap what you just said about your first advice and what I felt I took away from you as well. Rachel, I'm just looking for the other question just before yeah, it was just another question. Yeah, I'll come back to that. What I also took away from you is about the things about relaxation, the me time, and also obviously burning your 10 candles on both ends, but also the idea of logging and tracking what you're doing, you know, because I know in our quest, that's something that our ladies have a task to latch onto. And I say that's the most important thing, just understanding how you feel about how your daily life and what you eat and how you exercise and what doesn't work and works. Then we move into the next phase of life, so informed about ourselves that we know what's best for ourselves, you know. So definitely I took that away, and I would like to just reiterate that there. I won't recap, but I did start taping a little bit late. I forgot, and I remember I said, please remind me to press the damn tape record thing. But anyway, I will share whatever I have, and obviously the slides, so people will have that. And the other thing that we had a question here, do you know, when do you know menopause is over? And that's a question I have as well, because, I mean, I've been through menopause as far as I know, as far as you just said, but I still get hot flashes. So, you know.
You know it's over when you stop having the symptoms. But what I would say, and please don't freak out about this, some people, hot flushes are a really, really tricky thing. And they can last for, 3 years. Some people, they can last for 10. Some people, very, very rare, tiny percentage, still have them in their 70s and 80s. And then you really start having to try. We tend to cycle herbs, so we keep changing stuff for them because you get habituated to stuff and you get symptoms back. So it's very, very rare. Some people have hot flushes going on for quite a while. But what I would say is with that, I would really look at what's going on with your adrenals and your stress levels and what might be triggering those, whether it is actually estrogen or, what is the symptom with you. So, for example, if you'd stopped bleeding, right, for 12 months and you think, I'm in menopause, and then someone came to me and said, I've just started bleeding again, my advice would be, doctor now, just to check that they didn't have cancer. So, your symptoms, if they're going on forever, I would want to know what's going on with you, and is it really menopause? Is it the thyroid, for example? Is it stress levels? Because they shouldn't go on forever.
Well, it wasn't just me asking the question, but I mean, I went into other people, not just one either. But I mean, I have literally went through menopause, I would say 9-10 years ago. I started and went right through it. I didn't have my last period since I must be about 45, and I'm 53. So that's
quite early.
Yeah, but thank God. But no, in all seriousness, it's a problem, because anytime I drink champagne, I get hot flushes. which is a crap thing, you know. So it's a
Yes.
horrible.
The obvious answer is don't drink champagne, but I love champagne.
I love champagne, so I just drink it and sweat. But anyway, let's get a little bit serious, because I know some people are on their lunch. You can't just take the time like this. But that was one question. I think the book was the other, which Althea put down there. So I will also just ask you guys. It's not a lot of chatting.
Did you see that, the book?
Yeah. So maybe if you take a picture of the book as well.
You want me to put it in the chat?
I'll post it with it. Yes,
I'll
you
put
can
it in the chat.
And Althea put it though. Althea put it on.
Oh, she put it on.
Yeah, she put it on a while ago. And then Donna also said that she used yam tincture, and it has been very good for flushes and sweats.
Yes, dioscorea.
It is bad to use a mixture of most of the herbs on and off regularly. Yeah, that's what Rachel was saying here. So she was just saying it's not a good thing to use a mixture of all the herbs just continuously, but maybe just not so regularly.
Yeah, I would always have a break, you know, so have a break, maybe take them for a couple of months, have a week off, see if your symptoms have gone. So don't take anything longer than you actually need to take it for. But yes, wild yam is what they make progesterone from, although, and people have said it's progesteronic, but actually our bodies don't have the enzyme to convert the component in wild yam to progesterone. So recent research indicates that it's more estrogenic, but yes, for some women, it can be very helpful. We also use it as a muscle relaxant and for pain relief as well. It's quite good for period pain if you mix it with viburnum opulus and a bit of ginger.
Oh, that's nice. So did you get that? Yam tincture with a little bit of ginger for period cramps?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, interesting. All right. Well, I don't have period cramps, but some people do, and a lot of people do. So we share that with our younger people too, who are still struggling. I wish I knew that 20 years ago. Boy, I had a lot of struggle. But anyway, so ladies, any more questions? I think what we can do is to thank Rachel for her wealth of information. I'm just waiting to see if anybody has any more messages, questions. Yeah. You have a question?
Yeah. Yes. So for myself, hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for this. And yeah, I mean, there's so much there. And of course, this topic, we're all going to have our own story and how we enter this.
Yeah.
So for myself, I had to have a hysterectomy. It's 8 years ago now. So I had just turned 46. So I still have my cervix. I still have my ovaries.
Oh,
so,
that's good.
My mother's story is that I think she entered menopause at about 52. So I was 53 now. And just through different things, I've been monitoring cycles. So I can tell, you know, in terms of breast tenderness. And so I still actually even have vaginal secretions and so on that I've been able to monitor. But apart from that, and I exercise regularly, vegetarian. Is there anything that I could watch to see, you know, if I am in menopause? I mean, I'm fine, and I can imagine just, you know, with lifestyle, perhaps just saying, okay, this is just nature. And, you know, these are things, if you live long enough, you're going to have a period. If you live longer, you're going to go through menopause. Is there anything else that I should be tracking to see if I'm in it, or what would be some things that I could watch for?
I mean, to be honest, if you want to, I suppose, track it, the only thing I could think would be to have an actual hormone test to see where you are with your hormones, if you really want to know. But if you're keeping yourself healthy and you haven't got those symptoms, normally when people have a hysterectomy, they actually go through menopause earlier than they would otherwise have done. So I would probably have expected you to go a bit earlier than your mum. But you look absolutely amazing. So
yeah, she's my baby cousin. She has my genes.
Oh, there you go. You look fantastic.
Thank you.
So, you know, I would say it's not something to kind of worry about
Right.
and watch for symptoms. I would just say what I would do is obviously keep up with the obvious checks that we as women are always told to have to make sure that nothing's going wrong. So as long as you feel healthy and you're having your checks.
Yeah. Because I know too, like my mom, like you had mentioned, hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
So my mother, it had been offered to her. So this, I guess, would have been back in the maybe mid 90s or something. And she had started to do some reading. And of course, this was just when the horror stories had come out. And so she refused it from her family physician, and then felt very happy that she had done that. And I mean, for herself, she just kind of laughed through it when she would just flash and sweat and so on. And she really, but I don't know that it was really, how should I say, severe or extreme in terms of her maybe mood swings or other things. So she basically had the attitude, this is just a part of aging. Yeah. And so I don't know if it was just one of those things that how she took it in stride. And so since that's the example that I have, I sort of have that attitude as well. And, but then again, knowing that there's no, it's not about a shaming thing. It's not about, oh, you're better or you're worse, or judgment calls for anyone who needs any sort of support through it. So,
yeah, that's the other thing you mentioned.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
About the support, Camille, thanks to remind me about that.
Oh, I can't, Carla, I can't hear you.
Can't hear me? Hello?
I can just hear you really, really, really faintly.
Like you're whispering. We can't hear you.
Yeah.
No, that's odd. Can you hear me?
No. Has a microphone gone off?
No, I didn't do anything. It's
oh. Can just about hear you.
Well, what I was saying, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Go on.
I think there's something breaking. No, I was just saying that, can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now.
I was just saying that what Camille was saying, that was the other point I had noted down when you said about supporting each other.
Yeah.
You know, and really calling on your network, your sisterhood.
Yeah.
Often for us, we feel our friends or our sisters are so busy, they're so hectic, their lives are so full. And, you know, they may be going through the same thing and they need the support as well. And just reaching out can just help so much to have somebody, the company to share the experience with, and it relaxes you as well, because you talk about ways to relax. And as you said about the support community, that was a note I underlined to note that.
Yeah, because you know, some women have such bad problems. So for example, like their vagina will start bleeding when they walk. It's in such a bad state, and they might not want to, so they might be trying to avoid stuff, and it's really, and they might feel too embarrassed to talk about it. But I think it's, you know, really important, or not want to, you know, sports will obviously be difficult, but to try and support people and find the help that they need, and let them know that actually there's stuff you can do about this. You don't have to put up with this. You know, we really don't have to put up with this stuff.
Well, Rachel, I will also share your information with the ladies here.
Okay.
And when you're ready with your slides, let me share them. I can share them as much of the recording as we have. I don't need to rush off, but I know I have a way of staying too long on our calls. So I want to let everybody get back to work or get back to their evening stuff. Some of us are in England. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. And every Tuesday I'm here. And next week, I believe, what is next week? Is the 22nd, I believe. Yes, I will share the information. I think I have Afra Shimming Chase. And she's also a lawyer, but she's a financial advisor as well. And she's a very, very good friend of mine, old friend of mine from Namibia. So she has and she's been on a lot of talks and done a lot of stuff in her realm and in investment and stuff like that. So Carolyn, that might interest you, and Camille, but it would be interesting to share. So I'll share that information as well about what's happening for next week. But I'm here every Tuesday. I'm going to be here every Tuesday, 6 o'clock UK time or British summertime, and 1 o'clock. So just come and have lunch with us for those on the other side of the Atlantic. All right. So thank you so much, ladies. And message me if you need any more information. If you don't hear from me, just message me. I'll put the slides and everything into my Facebook page as well, which is called Carla Armour as well, just in case you're worrying. And then I'll share it with other groups.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So thank you for joining me at your core.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Carla. Excellent again. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Carolyn. Thanks, Donna.
Carla, when are you going to share the slides?
As soon as Rachel tells me it's okay to do so.
Okay, cool. All right. Then.
All right. And are you on Facebook, Donna?
I am, but not as me.
Okay.
It's a long story. It's all about the people into my business fair.
Okay.
But I can tell you, yeah, if you put it, I can tell you where to put it if you want to get me on Facebook.
No, when I share it, I'll send you the link.
Oh, perfect.
You can just go to me.
Perfect.
Yeah, you can just go to wherever I shared. I just say because I have your WhatsApp.
Yes, thank you. All right then.
Okay, thanks,
Very
Donna.
good,
Thanks for
very
joining.
good.
Really appreciate that.
Okay.
How is the Pilates going? Okay.
Yeah, I got my block and I'm doing my pigeon